So we have yet again another sad story about producer Rico Wade, who passed away unexpectedly at the age of 52. Now, this was pretty much a shock to the music industry because, again, as I've covered before, this was a unexpected passing. We don't know why his family's keeping that, to themselves, staying private and things like that. So, condolences to him and his family. Rest in peace to Rico Wade. But we do want to try and see what we can learn from this unexpected information so that way we can improve upon how we are going to navigate the music industry ourselves. But according to this article here from Parade, story by Megan Ruse, this was posted about 23 hours ago from the time I'm recording this. And it says Dungeon family member and organized noise producer Rico Wade has died. This was on Saturday, April 13th, and it says Wade's death was unexpected according to his family, and they won't disclose the cause of his death. So like I said, they're keeping it private. And they have a statement from the family. We are deeply saddened by the sudden and unexpected passing of our son, father, and husband, as well as brother, Rico Wade. Our hearts are heavy as we mourn the loss of a talented individual who touched the lives of so many. We ask that you respect the legacy of our loved one and our privacy at this time. And so when we think about like his age, perhaps we can kind of allude to his lifestyle. Removing Rico Wade from this, right? The average American lifestyle at age 52 normally is a sedentary lifestyle, right? And it's also one that's not really a nutrient dense lifestyle, meaning like there aren't a lot of foods that we eat that are really, really healthy. There aren't a lot of drinks that we have that are good for us, as well as a lot of activities that are good for us. And so a lot of the things that we tend to see with our favorite musicians and our loved ones, if they don't have some kind of like approach to a better lifestyle in terms of their health or their nutrition, we tend to see health issues start to arise and things like this. But as I'm reading the article, it goes on to say the Atlanta-based producer worked with several prominent artists after launching Organized Noise with Ray Murray and Sleepy Brown in the early 1990s. So he's been in the game for a long time. The production company worked on hits like TLC's Waterfalls, Ludacris's Saturday, you know that song, Sticky, ooh, 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 that jump, and Outkast's Players Ball. So they had some hits under their belts, definitely. Many of the artists that Rico Wade collaborated with in the more than 3 decades he spent working in the music industry shared tributes on social media as the news of his death spread. So a lot of people definitely started to play the records that he was working on and things like that. But I wonder if a lot of them really understood his position when it came to the role that that music played. Like, for example, they have a post here from Killer Mike, who worked with them, because remember, he worked with Outkast and things like that. That was a very personal relationship for him, right? So this passing probably hit him a lot differently than the fans did. But I always wonder how much of hip hop really and truly understands and grasps the roles that people play in the music that we enjoy that you don't see on camera. Like you won't see the stylist, you won't see the producer. Honestly, now you're starting to see producers take a step forward because of how they have to leverage their resumes. But most producers, you're not going to see their face or hear their name until you intentionally go and look for it. So I wonder if there is some kind of information that's lost between the fan and how a record's made and what really brings value to a record, right? So the article, it continues to go on and it talks about how everybody's worked with him, from Organized Noise, Dungeon Family. I mean, Organized Noise and Dungeon Family is his situation, but he has pictures with Goody Mob, like I said, Killer Mike, Big Boy, Andre 3000. All of Atlanta is recognizing Rico Wade. He was born in 1972. And so we don't really know what his passing was, but a lot of it seems to be for most of these musicians when they get around this age seems to be health issues. And it's never something nefarious or anything going on like that. It's usually a bit of lifestyle and things like that, but the families decided to keep it pretty hidden and keeping their privacy. But I do want to know, put in the comments, is this something that you think about as a musician? Like, do you have some kind of plan for how it's going to end, or do you have some kind of like expectation for problems like this? Like, let's say if you're in a band, for example, and your lead singer suddenly has health issues and that takes a big toll on how they're going to perform. Are you prepared to deal with that as an individual, or are you prepared to deal with that as a group? And this can be something that it's unexpected. Like, they didn't expect this to happen. In some kind of shining light, it's in a way a good thing that it happened in the later end of his career and not like in the middle where everything was kind of going crazy and busy. But these things are something that I think a lot of artists need to keep in mind going forward, but they also need to start thinking about this earlier and earlier. So like if you're a college musician or something right now, like how do you expect your career to be complete? Not necessarily end, because I don't like to use the word end, because when I think of musicians like BB King and things like that, like you're gonna be a musician for life, but how do you want this whole thing to kind of have a sunset to it? How do you want this whole thing to kind of close or have some kind of closure to it? And it comes in many different shapes and forms because nobody expects, how it's going to work, but we got to kind of prepare for the different ways it can end. So when you think about a Nipsey Hussle or a Tupac, or you think of an Amy Winehouse and you think of Aaliyah and all these different names, these are, again, the popular names, but these are some of the names that we can think of immediately. But there are a lot of people who go through these issues that we don't know the names of, who are real people with real families that really care about them, just like you and I. But how are they able to, prepare for these situations or deal with them when they do happen? And for many of these artists that I see today, one, I do notice a lot of artists kind of participate in the lifestyles that have these kinds of sudden, unexpected deaths that happen. And an example of that would be drinking alcohol. I used to drink alcohol in college, right? But what I noticed was there was a difference between the person who would drink socially and the person who felt like they needed to drink to have a personality. And that can play a role as a musician because of the general lifestyle a musician has. You're usually in, like if you're a performing artist, you're usually in situations where people are celebrating. And outside of that situation, the people who you're performing for, they may not drink as often. But if you're working around that often, you have a lot more opportunities to be swayed into taking a sip here and there, taking a glass here and there. And so it may become a part of your personality and your lifestyle. And for some people, they may not be strong enough to say no or limit themselves to have some kind of order and structure in it, which is where you will get a lot of musicians or artists that find themselves addicted to things, substances, certain activities like gambling, women. There's a lot of things that you can find yourself addicted to. So this is why you have to be aware of this early and find some ways to either manage it, curtail it, or understand your situation. Because if you're just hoping your situation will work out as an artist, it may not. And you may find yourself in a moment where like you're screaming in the hotel room like Kendrick Lamar or something like that. And another way you'll see a lot of people participate in these lifestyles is that they'll have friends that do it. And I notice this a lot with newer artists that get signed to record labels. They'll start off as a musician. We know them because they're talented in either rapping, singing, dancing, whatever it is. But then you start to notice their friends. And their friends don't do anything. Their friends don't work out. Their friends don't cook. Their friends don't have girlfriends. They're not married. They're not assisting the business. Probably like two of them maybe take pictures. When you start to see that, it'll start to bleed into your characteristics as a musician because those people are around you all the time. You can't function against how other people live and then constantly be around them. You kind of have to have space between you so you can operate properly. And so, what an example of that would be is you as an artist, you know you have to be in the studio a certain time. Why are your friends coming if they're not going to be helping you make beats, publish records, or get any kind of like analytics reviewed or give you some kind of insight into how to improve what you're doing in the studio? They don't need to be there. And so that means that y'all friendship has to have time away from each other so that way you can work. And that's the only way this can really work and be successful. So then you have to have the conversation with your friend about having boundaries, meaning that when that time comes up, that time has to be the standard. Like that time has to be the time you have for your studio time or your practice time or whatever it is that you need to get done. They can't be in between that time and your goals. They can't be in between it. They have to either stand alongside it or get completely out of the way. And that's usually a conversation that's difficult for just people in general, just setting boundaries with people you really love and enjoy. But I say all this to say is that there's a lot of things that you have to think about as a musician before you start to get successful. And honestly, it continues and it gets even harder as you get successful. So things like your health, things like who you're hanging around, what kind of people you're around, and all these things. These are very, very, very important things to talk about and to think about as a musician, because I'm having this conversation with a camera lens. Like there's no person I'm talking to saying this unless you type in the comments that you understand the information. But for most people, they're not going to come across this information or this video on purpose. This is going to be kind of like coincidence. So there is no plan to be successful in the music industry, which is the point of this channel, is to give you some kind of footwork to move around outside of having to stand outside of a radio station hoping that somebody hear your demo. So this was helpful and insightful. Let me know by hitting like, share, and subscribe, and we'll be covering more current events like this here on the channel. Rest in peace to Rico Wade, passing away at 52 years old. That's crazy, unexpectedly too.